A very good morning to everyone present here. I am Aditya Patil, OC Conclave, and I wholeheartedly welcome you all to Day 1 of Malhar' Conclave 2026. Ever since its inception in 2009, Conclave has been the heart of Malhar, having hosted some of our country's most distinguished personalities like Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, Dr. Shashi Tharoor, Mr. Naseeruddin Shah, Mr. Anurag Kashyap, and Ms. Supriya Sure, among others. Conclave has always held space for intellectual discourses that have reflected the socio-political and cultural zeitgeist, inspiring the youth every year with every edition. Keeping this virtue of Conclave in mind, I'd now like to invite on stage the chairperson of Malhar' 2026, Ethan Colasso, to address the gathering.
Good morning, everyone. On behalf of Malhar', I'm really happy to welcome everyone to Malhar' Conclave 2026. Here at Malhar' is mostly about excitement, chaos, and a lot of energy. But at Conclave, we take a moment to slow down. We take a moment to experience it. And here, we want you all to take the conversations in and mostly make it your own. With that, welcome everyone to the Conclave 2026. Thank you. I'd now like to invite the Vice Chairperson Networking, Vaidhi Deshpande.
Good morning, everyone, and it is my pleasure to have you all here in the Conclave session. Today is day 1, and we start with an amazing lineup. To all the speakers present here, to all the audience members, thank you so much for being here and gracing us with your presence. The Conclave lineup this year is extraordinary thanks to our amazing Conclave team. We're going to go forward with today's session, so see Aditya Patil will be taking this forward. Thank you so much. Have a great session.
Thank you, Ethan and Betsy. As we commence with the Malhar' Conclave 2026 opening ceremony, I'd like to invite on stage our esteemed principal, Dr. Karana Gopan, our keynote speaker, Ms. Trisha Shetty, and our rector, Father Keith D'Souza, to inaugurate the light lamping ceremony. Can we have a huge round of applause for all of them? dignitaries. May the light guide us, the youth, to an illuminating path of self-introspection, meaningful dialogue, and actionable change. OPL presents the 2026 edition of Malhar' Conclave. OPL is India's largest AI-driven digital lending infrastructure company, redefining the credit ecosystem through a sophisticated end-to-end technology platform. Malhar' Conclave 2026 presents the theme Pratibimb Behind the Becoming. Each story we carry has an unexplored side to it. Pratibimb exists to bring that side to light. Malhar' Conclave 2026 promises to be intellectually stimulating and intrinsically motivating. Through our lineup this year, which features impactful personalities in the sphere of human rights, entrepreneurship, policy and politics, social cause, media, administration, Bollywood and sports. A holistic lineup which is curated for the youth, by the youth and of the youth. So without any further ado, in spirit of everyone present here in the prestigious college hall, the Malhar' 2026 organizing committee, Principal Dr. Karana Bogan, and Director of Faculty D'Souza, and keynote speaker, Mr. Shashi, and the Malhar staff committee, and the distinguished audience, I, Aditya Patil, host the conclave, declare the Malhar' 2026 officially open. I'd now like to invite conclave volunteer Chelsea Dogra to introduce our esteemed keynote speaker, Ms. Trisha Shetty. Thank you.
Conviction is choosing what to stand for and standing there even when the world gets louder. Good morning, everyone. When the room gets bigger, so does the responsibility that comes with having a voice. And somewhere along that journey comes a choice. Do we change what we stand for, or do we carry our conviction with us? This is the heart of our keynote session today. In keeping this year's theme, Pratibimb Behind the Becoming, this is a conversation about conviction, courage, and purpose that shape the journey behind success. And a few journeys embody that question as powerfully as that of our keynote speaker today, Ms. Trisha Shetty. She is the founder of She Says India and a leading advocate for gender equality, human rights, and youth representation. She serves as the president of the steering committee of the Paris Peace Forum and a member of the Global Leadership Advisory Council for the UN. Her work has been recognized globally through the Vogue India Woman of the Year Award, Forbes 30 Under 30, the Queen's Young Leader Award, and the UN Young Leader for Sustainable Development Goals. She was also an inaugural Obama Foundation Scholar at Columbia University, and in 2026 was a named Young Global Leader by the World Economic Forum, recognizing her commitment to shaping a more sustainable and inclusive future. Ladies and gentlemen, it is an absolute privilege to welcome a woman who has transformed advocacy into action, conviction into influence, and a voice into movement. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to our keynote speaker, Ms. Trisha Shetty.
Thank you so much for having me here. I was thinking about what to say when I accepted the invite. And coincidentally, your theme is about expressions, and I thought about, it's okay. I thought about faces of courage. I want to take you back to December 2016. I received a call from a father of a 4-year-old child. The father said, "Ma'am, a few months ago I think you went to St. Xavier's College and conducted a gender sensitization seminar with the students. And one of the attendees, students who heard your session, the work that your organization does to her father, who is my employer, who spoke to me about your organization's work, and I'm calling you because my 4-year-old daughter has been assaulted, raped, and I want to access justice. Can you help? There's a reason I accepted this speaking invite because Xavier's has always held a particularly close place in my heart. And once you hear my speech, you'll probably understand why. This is one of those calls that has inherently shaped my life and made me the person who I am today. I'll tell you why. Why? Because it was the first time I saw a victim of rape that was a child that barely came up to my knee. Why? Because when I started my organization, she said, we started as a youth-led organization, which is a feminist organization, unapologetically feminist, to fight for equality. And I thought showing up with the right values, the right principles, conviction, means you are guaranteed justice. It took me a long time to realize that no one guarantees you justice, and that this process of showing up is extremely arduous. So I remember from the first time of meeting the parents and the child, taking them to the hospital, the government hospital, where the government hospital treated the child extremely badly. You know, these people, the parents showed up asking me for justice, and I remember what the father said. He said, before this man, who essentially was a chocolate store owner, where the child went to buy chocolates, it's a 25-year-old man, raped my daughter, he had been known in the community to have assaulted a lot of other children. But no one said anything because ghar ki baat ghar pe rakho, shame. He said that someone has spoken up for their child's safety. My daughter would have been safe. And I'm speaking up not just for justice for my daughter, but to make sure this perpetrator, this man, will never touch another innocent child again. Regardless of if their parents do the right thing or not, I know I'm fighting for not just my child, for everyone's child to be safe. And he kept showing up. He showed up when he had diarrhea. He called me and he said, "Ma'am, I have really bad diarrhea, I can't show up to court." I said, "Don't worry, we'll be there." He still showed up. He ran to the bathroom every 5 to 10 minutes, but he showed up. He showed up when we had to do a victim identification parade, which is victim identification parade, which is essentially when the child has to identify the rapist. We were hoping this would be in a closed door room. They lined up a group of men, and she had to pick out who the rapist was from the group of men. And there are witnesses there who see who the child points at. The child pointed at the alleged rapist. The witnesses said, "We didn't see it clearly." So the police officer tells me, "We're going to have the men come out in a line and have the child touch the shoulder of the person who she thinks raped her." This is in Bombay, in town, a hospital. And I remember looking at the police officer saying, "There is no way this child is touching her alleged rapist." And they said, "The parents can't be touching the child, you have to hold the child." Again, 4-year-old barely comes up to my knee. I'm holding the child in my arms. And each man walks out. She sees her rapist. She raises her hand, she's shaking. And I'll never forget his expression. He looked at the child, he looked at me, he looked at the police officers, the rapist, and just did, like, "I'm such a poor man, why are you trying to target me?" And I tried a lot to make sense of that day. We walked out of that place, and the father looked at me and said, "Ma'am, I heard child rapists are beaten up in jail." But he was completely fine. There's no bruises on his body, there's nothing. This is a very powerful man. Are you sure I get access to justice? I had to make sense of this to tell him, "We're trying, we will not let go of your side, we will try." He kept showing up, we kept showing up. And 3 years later, in September 2019, I spoke to the father and was looking at a newspaper which said, 25-year-old who raped the 4.5-year-old child has been sentenced to 10 years of imprisonment. And that's the first time I realized there is inherent value in showing up despite the struggles, despite the pushback. This family had to move homes, had to give up their jobs because of the threats and harassment that they were getting. But they continued to show up. And that's also the first face of courage I saw. Not just the child, but the parents, who fought the good fight for their child and for every other child in that vicinity. You know, when I first started speaking up for human rights, I started getting a lot of calls to speak at places. And very quickly, I started getting messages, very subtle messages of censor yourself. So I was called to give a keynote address at Qatar. disturbing on the grounds of sexual orientation, disturbing on the grounds of race. How many of you here know about Bilkis Banu? For those who don't, I encourage you to look up our history. It serves as a great lesson to us all. Bilkis Banu was a young girl whose family was attacked during the Gujarat riots. 14 members of her family were murdered in front of her. Her 3-year-old child was murdered with the child's head being banged on the concrete, and that's how they killed the child. Bilkis Banu was pregnant, and they gang raped her and raped members of her family who were killed. Is this fine now? Thank you. Thank you. And for years she fought for justice. They left her to death, she survived. Her child lived, both her children lived. Not the one in her stomach, not the one that she raised for 3 years. For years after fighting for justice, she got justice. Where 11 people were convicted on charges of murdering members of her family, raping her, as well as raping members of her family. Tomorrow is going to be August 15th, our Independence Day. And this is why history is important. On August 15th, 2022, the government in charge thought it is fit to release the 11 convicts of Bilkis Banu on grounds of good behavior. Because they said certain castes, when they engaged in criminal activities, it's okay because they have paid the price, they have engaged in good behavior. So people spoke up. Young people, activists, lawyers, people spoke up and objected to this, that the idea of independence and the idea of India being a free country cannot be linked to 11 convicted rapists and murderers being let go just because the victim belongs to a certain religion. No, this is not the country we stand for. And luckily, we saw justice. Now the thing is, I belong to a generation, as you Gen Z apparently call us season 1 of activists, people that fought. And father was asking me, have you come to Xavier's before? And I was telling father about my fond memories of being at Xavier's. Not just because of your beautiful architecture, I come from Jerry College. And anytime we try to brag, we were reminded of what beautiful architecture is here and how we live in a building. But also because of the values that hold this place up together. I remember when we protested for our constitution, when we protested and spoke up, we used words of fairs where we said, Bol ke lab azad hai teri, bol zaban ab tak teri hai. Which means speak for your lips are free, speak for your tongue is still yours. We spoke knowing that we will get victimized, that we will get attacked, we will be asked where does your funding come from, this is foreign invested propaganda to take down the name of our country. We spoke knowing that we will be called anti-national, called terrorists, but we continue to speak up. The reason why this space is special and important to me is because one of the faces of courage that I will always remember is Father Fraser, who when Father Stan Swami was jailed and arrested simply for speaking up for tribal rights and was not given water despite his health condition. There were certain people who spoke up and said, you do not get to dictate who you call as terrorists, you do not get to dictate who you call as anti-nationalists. We will remember our heroes. Our heroes are the ones who spoke the language of Jesus Christ, who spoke the language of our Hindu gods, of all our gods, and stood up for our most vulnerable and most marginalized. I will always remember the face of courage of Father Fraser, who said, conviction demands that we speak up for everyone and show up for them. Now the thing is, we spoke up and we showed up, but I think the way we did it differently and the way we did it incorrectly is we held on to the Constitution, we held on to chants. But what Gen Z showed us is you can show up and speak up, but when you act, you can do it from a place of inherent joy. I remember when Russia invaded Ukraine, I showed up to serve in the borders of Ukraine and Poland. I showed up to serve during war, and this is again one of those instances of my life that I will never forget. Because what I saw was buses come from the borders, and families get up, and the faces again are things I will not forget. Faces of mothers getting down the buses, holding their teenage children holding the hands of adolescents pushing prams of young children in prams. They looked scared, and you knew that every family had left their brothers, their fathers behind to serve in war while they were looking for refuge. And I remember in those, crisis centers that we called it, where they had given up their whole family, they'd come with a sack with all the belongings that they could carry. They were shown where the bathroom is, the communal bathroom where they could take a shower. They were shown where there are clothes that they could go pick up. They were shown the communal kitchen that they could go eat out of. Their life had forever changed. They were living in a place that hundreds and hundreds were calling home, which basically was a space like this, which is bunk set up, tent set up for people to live. And the face of courage were the children playing with the younger children. The laugh and the defiance of children's laughter, where despite of war, they figured out how to hold on to their humanity, help each other, and laugh. This question of price tag, who's funding your resistance, who's funding you, who's incentivizing you to speak up for human rights, comes up very often every time you dare to speak up, especially if you're a minority, especially if you're a woman, especially if you're queer. I think people who ask these questions don't realize that there is no price tag you can put for education, that there is no price tag you can put for justice, that there is no price tag you can put for freedom. When people in power forget whom they serve and they use dehumanizing rhetoric, they call you, Gen Z, who are doing everything right, studying at brilliant institutions, working really hard to gain access to quality education, just to have access to a better quality life, and still not get access to employment. You all were reduced down to names such as cockroaches. People in power try to dehumanize Gen Z. They try to reduce you down to name calling. How Gen Z replied was with memes, was with satire, and was with reclaiming the narrative. When people entrusted to keep our safety in order, to protect the youth of our country, resort to using water cannons, the youth of our country resorted to dance moves in the face of violence. When the people in power resorted to tear gas and lathi charge, the youth of our country doubled down on defiance, doubled down on solidarity, doubled down on conviction. Because the thing is, I've always known this, the youth of our country inherently knows what is right and what is wrong. Because despite the Supreme Court of our country and the Chief Justice of our country not having time to see videos of police violence against students, you saw what you saw with your eyes. And that was enough for you to hold on to your humanity, speak up, and demand for justice. Because see, the thing is, you cannot put a price tag on youth. When I look at faces of courage, and when I was thinking of what are the faces of courage I could talk about to inspire you all, I don't need to invoke many other faces, but the faces I look at right now today, looking back at me, are the faces of courage that I think of that will inspire our country and people around the world. I don't know how many of you have seen the movie. It's called The Swimmers on Netflix. Anyone? It's the story of this 17-year-old girl. She's called Yusra Maldini and her sister Sara Maldini. Yusra was 17 when Assad from Syria was still a dictator who was actively killing her people. So she had to escape to find safety with her sister Sara, who was 20. They escaped to Turkey and had to get on a dinghy from Turkey to Greece, Laos to seek for asylum. What should have been a relatively easy journey of 30 minutes ended up being a nightmare that lasted close to 4 hours. Because the dinghy was overcrowded, it could barely fit 6 to 7 people. Unfortunately, 20 people who were seeking refuge from the worst atrocities and hoping to just find safety in a foreign land were crammed into this boat. And within a few minutes of taking off, the boat started sinking in the middle of the night. Faces of courage, Yusra and Sara, were professional swimmers. They jumped off the boat without really doing the combination of, will I survive, what are the risks associated with this, but simply for the virtue of showing up and being there for other people. They jumped off the boat, they tied the boat to their body, and they physically dragged the boat with them, saving the lives of everyone on board. She's a hero today, and then after that she went on to swim in the Olympics as part of the first inaugural Olympic committee of refugees. She became was laughing at me and I was laughing at her. I was making jokes and she said, you should just know, if you and I are in the middle of the ocean and you're drowning, I'm not saving you, you're going down. And I realized the reason why she's a face of courage is because not only does she have the courage to do exemplary things, to defy body limitations, but she remembers to laugh through it all. And see, here's the thing, when you laugh at the face of injustice, the people trying to control us with fear cannot control us anymore. And this is what I realized is different and your contribution as Gen Z to us as a people. Our constitution, as a lawyer, that's a sacred text that I guard very deeply. It starts with we, the people. But slowly over time, the people in power, regardless of who's been in power, regardless of what political colors they wear, seem to have forgotten that our constitution starts with we, the people. But there is one group of people historically that has had the power to remind authoritarian, fascist leaders, regardless of which political party they belong to, that they remember the lines of our constitution starts with we, the people. And those people are our young people, are the youth of today. They keep saying the kids are alright. The truth is, without our youth, we wouldn't be alright. So I want to say, thank you for showing exemplary courage. For a lot of us, we kept showing up and we had given up hope. We didn't know if we would live to see a day where we remembered that what makes us truly special as a country is our diversity. Is people being proud and say, do you know Xavier's College has a 70% female student population rate? It's people being proud to say, we are a diverse country, we are a diverse student population. This youth of our country is the kind of courage that I knew we had it in us, but I didn't know you all could do it with so much style, with so much panache, and that you could make it cool to dissent, that you could make it cool to stand up and speak up and fight for rights, and that you, through your reels, through your memes, would inspire us all. It's a thing of beauty when young people stop getting scared. I remember the video of the police officer threatening a student in Bombay who showed up for the protest that happened, for the fight for equality, education, and justice for the students that lost their lives. And this is video of a police officer threatening the young boys in his van, saying, if I see you again at one of these protests in Bombay, I'll plant drugs on you, I'll ruin your life, I'll destroy your life. And what I saw in response was defiance, was bitter defiance. This young person turning the camera, going into the selfie mode and laughing. How can you control a people who are armed with ideas of equality, of justice, of human rights? How can you control people who are bound together by solidarity and will show up and fight the good fight and do so peacefully, do so with joy, do so dancing? So I want to thank you all for having me here today. I want to thank you more than anything for reminding us what a brilliant democratic socialist republic India is. Tomorrow, as we welcome 80 years of our independence, I want to thank you all for reminding us that we are a free country and that together when we speak up and when the voices of our youth are highlighted, we represent the best of our country and the best of India. Long live our constitution, long live our country, and long live the voices of you, Gen Z, for showing us what a brilliant country India is and what our true potential is. So thank you so much for being faces of courage. When we as a people seem to have forgotten where our moral compass was, you reminded us and showed us what the right direction looked like. It's an honor to walk in the shadows of the light that you have lit for all of us. Thank you. I think I said if you have questions, you all can ask me. So, does anyone have questions? How are people?
Hello. Ma'am, you spent years.
What's your name?
Yash.
Hi, Yash.
Hello. You spent years challenging systems rather than just individual behavior. But what happens when the system you're trying to change is also the system you have to work within? When do you negotiate and when do you draw a line and refuse to compromise?
I don't negotiate with fascists, I don't negotiate with people who try to justify crimes against minorities, against women, against Muslims, against Catholics on the grounds of religion. I don't negotiate. I will not compromise on my humanity by negotiating with people who inherently don't respect human rights. If you are going to discriminate against someone on the grounds of their religion, on the grounds of their gender, I will not negotiate with you. I work with people who have a basic understanding of our constitution, of human rights, of decency. You know, there are certain people who I call popcorn eating bystanders, who don't have anything to contribute, but who always have feedback and criticism with the people fighting on the front lines. People are fighting and they tell them, were you polite enough in speaking up against discrimination? We saw that right now, right? Youth and students are fighting and they were questioned on their language. The people who showered them with lathi charge with violence were not questioned on their behavior. But young women taking to the streets demanding for access to quality education are being beaten, and then they are asked to be polite when speaking up for their rights and for their humanity. I don't negotiate with bad faith actors. And I don't think we need to negotiate with bad faith actors. That is what our Gen Z has shown us. The more you engage with these people because you want a seat in the room, you forget the purity of your fight. Every room I've walked into, I have known that I'm completely fine not coming back there again. Because I am answerable to the people I work with on ground. I'm answerable to young people like you, who again are not bought and not silenced. So why would I negotiate? Would you negotiate with someone who has a foot on your neck and is asking you to speak up politely when all you're asking for is human rights and decency and justice? Who you would? If you see something and you refuse to speak up about it, what is the point of having your eyesight and your mouth? So yes, there will be resistance. But this idea of, you get a lot more with sitting with players at the table. No, you can sit with players at the table, but if you don't forget what you're sitting there, what your agenda is, and if you're unapologetic about it. Beautiful. Who has a question?
On behalf of the Malhar'26 Organizing Committee as well as the Conclave Department, I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude to Mr. Shah Shetty for gracing our stage with your presence today. I would like to thank our principal, Dr. Karna Kokan, the Malhar Staff Committee, as well as the multitude of departments involved in making this conclave session truly memorable. I would also like to thank our sponsor, OPL. Last but not the least, I would like to thank our audience for being such an attentive and engaged part of this conversation. I would now like to invite our rector, Father Keith D'Souza, and our principal, Dr. Karuna Kokan, on stage to present Mr. Shah Shetty with a token of our affection and appreciation.
moment you decide to be yourself. Coco Chanel said that long before beauty became a boardroom conversation. And today, we welcome two women who prove exactly how far that decision can go. For the longest time, beauty was treated as decoration, something added on, never built up. Today, that idea has been completely rewritten, and our two speakers are part of the reason why. Our first speaker walked away from the certainty of a management consulting career to bet everything on just an instinct that Indian beauty needed a brand that actually looked like India. That instinct became Faye Beauty, built on inclusivity, individuality, and refusal to retouch reality. Please welcome its founder, Ms. Karishma Kevaramani. Our second speaker has spent over 2 decades shaping some of the most recognizable faces in Indian cinema, with an IFA award to her name and a career built on the trust of the industry's biggest stars. But she didn't stop at the makeup chair. She took that craft and built a brand of her own, Simply Nam. And along the way, a whole generation of artists now call her their teacher. Please welcome Ms. Namrita Soni. Two journeys, two starting points. One rethought beauty from the outside in, and the other mastered it from the inside out. And today, we bring both worlds onto one stage, where creativity meets consumers, craft meets capital, and beauty becomes business. This is B2B, beauty to business. So let's put our hands together and give a very warm welcome to Ms. Karishma Kevaramani and Ms. Namrita Soni.
Well, today we have two inspiring women, two very different journeys, and one industry that has changed dramatically over the years. Well, I think we're in for a really interesting conversation. I'm Kavya Anand, and I'm your moderator for today. So, Namrita ma'am and Karishma ma'am, welcome. It's a pleasure to have you here. Well, the title of our session today is B2B, Beauty to Business. And we've all seen your brand, of course. But what we haven't seen is the journey behind them. You know what, Namrita ma'am, you've experienced the beauty industry from within. And Karishma ma'am, you identified a gap in the beauty industry as a consumer. So how did you turn your experiences in the beauty industry into such huge brands of your own?
Thank you so much for having us here. It's a privilege to be part of such an amazing community and festival. I think I've been in this industry for 26 years, and I think the gap that I felt was, as a makeup artist at that point, we were always looking to the West to acquire products, to buy, certain colors and certain formulations, but there was nothing that was actually made for us here. Our climate, our skin color, our skin tones, nothing was made for us. Everything we had to mix and match multiple colors, different formulations to create that one perfect shade of lipstick or that one perfect foundation meant for our skin. And that is what I wanted to do with Simply Now, to bridge the gap by bringing in colors that you didn't have to think too hard, to just go pick it up and you know that you're covered and you're looked after by the brand. And I think that's where, and also having, I think I've worked on more than 20,000 faces in my career, listening to their pain points, what they want, what they love, what they don't have, what they would love to have in this, as in their personal kits. I think that inspired me to take beauty and make it into a business for Simply Now.
That's so heartfelt. And Karishma ma'am?
So, first of all, thanks for having us here. Such a privilege to be able to connect with so many folks
who've been sort of champions in growing up the brand. Very similar sort of seed idea as Namrata, which was beauty in India, at least when I had experienced it, felt intimidating and inaccessible. I found myself asking the question, why do I have to pay such a high premium to find a product that actually works for my Indian skin tone? I have what a lot of people call fairness privilege, but a lot of women in India don't have fair skin. They have deeper, medium colored skin, and just like Amrita said, it was incredibly hard to find products that actually worked with our skin tones and undertones. And that was the essence behind the brand as well, to create a community, to create products that didn't feel intimidating for people who didn't fit conventional standards.
As you mentioned about beauty and the fact that it was intimidating, and it was actually very superficial in the early years. But today it's everywhere. There's a whole industry and a business on beauty. So my question is, what do you think changed the perception of beauty over the years? Do you go first?
I think access has changed the perception, right? I think that social media has a lot to do with it. Beauty today doesn't seem unattainable, and it doesn't seem like something that's reserved just for celebrities. It's become a part of everyone's ritual, not just for the other person to see, but for them to feel really great about themselves. So I think that mobilization and shareability of beauty is what's needed a bit more mainstream.
I also think the younger generation being so open to trying new things and not being scared to embrace themselves. They embraced color. That's been my mantra as a makeup artist, always embrace your skin color. When I started, we used to have in India, the brands that existed had maybe 4 shades of foundations, and that was meant to cover all the skin tones in our country. And I think when I started, it was always about embrace your color, embrace your skin. And I think this generation, the younger generation, got that out, allowed people to know that it's okay and that it feels great and it looks great to walk out with an amazing eyeliner or a green kajal or a beautiful pink or red lipstick. The confidence that it gives them is unbelievable. So I think it marries into each other. What we are both saying, it's just social media, like she said, has played such a big part. I was a lockdown baby, like my brand started in lockdown, and I am primarily still an online brand. And I think I have been successful and I still survive today because I'm online and because of social media and because of all you wonderful people out there.
That's so true. In fact, social media is a tool that I've seen both of you use, and it really connects with us, being the younger generation. So that brings me to my question, Karishma ma'am. You left a career in consulting and you built Faith from scratch. You also eventually took the brand to Shark Tank. So I'm sure you must have faced a couple of challenges along the way. So for the younger generation today, how would you teach them to navigate these challenges, and how should we learn that from them?
So we were actually talking about something similar upstairs as well, which is entrepreneurship is a marathon, it's not a race. You have to be extremely patient and extremely resilient and be able to be punched every single day and still wake up the next morning with the same energy, the same passion, the same belief, and go back to the playing field. So I think the number one thing that I would recommend to every budding young entrepreneur is please be resilient and patient. If you look around you, you will realize that the most successful companies are the ones that just lasted. So very often people will sort of lose the battle because they get impatient, because they get exhausted of constantly losing. And what we see on Shark Tank, what we see on social media is glamorous. It seems like it's a cakewalk, but every single day is difficult. So not to discourage you, but to in fact inspire you and give you a reality check that if you are struggling with your entrepreneurship journey, it is normal. A very famous entrepreneur, Piyush Bansal, said to me once,
every single entrepreneur lives to die another day. And that is exactly what it means to continue to build every single day. So just be resilient and keep at it. You'll probably be successful.
That quote was beautiful. Well, Namrata ma'am, Om Shanti Om was such a huge moment in your career, and winning an IFA award for it was bigger. So, how did that experience change the way you saw your career and maybe the opportunities in the beauty industry?
So I don't know if a lot of people know this, but I won an IFA in 2008, and that time women were banned from doing makeup in this industry. So when I won an IFA, it was literally women standing up and saying, okay, we have achieved this, we have won this. How are you still stopping us from working in this industry? We've had a woman prime minister, we have a woman president, and you are dictating to us today what we can and cannot do with our careers. It gave me the confidence at that point, winning it, to realize that, okay, this is a fight that I need to continue, this is a fight that I need to win, and however long it's going to take, like Karishma spoke about patience, it took really long, and the case was finally won in the Supreme Court in 2014, and it really changed the trajectory for, I would say yes, for my career for sure, but it also, I could tell the world, like, you know, I would be on movie sets and I would get fined for being there, being a woman. The production would get fined by the civil union. They would come and harass us and ask them to replace me. And I think what this did was that if I'm being recognized on an international and an Indian level as a makeup artist today, why don't I have the right to work and whose permission do I need to work? So that opened a lot of doors.
That's commendable. We all, especially the young women sitting in the audience today, we need to look up to you. The way you fought, you've created a legacy for female makeup art. I think we should have a round of applause for that. Please, everyone, come on! Well, before we wrap up, to lighten the mood, can we have a quick rapid fire round? I'm all up for that. So firstly, what's one beauty myth you'd love to bust? Karishma ma'am?
Very on brand for me, but you don't have to be fair to be lovely.
Perfect.
I absolutely agree, you don't have to be fair to be lovely and just embrace the color. It's what life is all about. Everybody is beautiful. And I always say this to every single person who sits in my chair. They'll come and show me a picture of an actor. They'll say, I want to look like this. I said, but you are already so beautiful. Let me do my job and make you the best version of yourself.
Perfect. Okay, next up. Someone's never heard of your brand. What's one product you'd hand them? Namrata ma'am, this time, do you like Karishma ma'am, are you fine with that?
I would give them a liquid. It's our liquid lipstick. It's quite popular. I can't choose, so I'm going to give two products. I would say my ultimate kajal, and I would say my makeup removing towel. It changed my life.
I love the kajal, it stays the whole day.
So happy to hear that.
And the liquid, of course, it's like, it's always on. My mom always says. So true. Okay, finally, what's one trend you secretly love? And what's one trend you want to retire? Any one of you can take the lead.
One that I really love is actually overlining the lips. I think it's a great hack. And one that I don't like is like extremely white under eyes. Like, you look at a ghost over there. I think the one myth that, sorry, not the myth, the one thing that I would want to go away is microbladed and nano-bladed eyebrows. I think they're overpowering the way a woman looks. I definitely want that to go away. And I think the one thing I secretly love is matte makeup. It's coming back.
I think that was splendid, and I think that's a perfect note to wrap up. Well, thank you so much, Namrita ma'am and Karishma ma'am. It was like a pleasure having you here today and this insightful conversation. I'm sure everyone, all this entire young audience looks up to you, especially the women out there. So the audience, can we please have a round of applause for these amazing, amazing women? Louder, oh my God!
Thank you so much for having us. It's been a pleasure. Thank you everyone for taking out time to be here and hearing our story.
Thank you. It was so wonderful meeting some of you, and thanks for taking the time to hear us out.
Thank you so much.
On behalf of Malhar' 26 organizing committee as well as the Conclave department, I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude to Ms. Kanshma Kevarmani and Ms. Namrata Soni ma'am for gracing our stage with your presence. Understanding business and the world of entrepreneurship is something we all seek, and the beauty industry particularly is one of the most interesting sectors, which is as glamorous as it looks, is as difficult to thrive in. And today, I'm sure everyone who was here will be able to take home incredible insights and amazing memories. I would like to thank our principal, Dr. Karuna Gokar, Malhar staff committee, as well as the departments involved in making this conclave session possible, for making it possible to delve deeper into the meaning of Pratibim behind the becoming, with another insightful session. I'd also like to thank our sponsor OPL. OPL presents Malhar' Conclave 2026. OPL is India's largest AI-driven digital lending infrastructure company, redefining the credit ecosystem through a sophisticated end-to-end technology platform. Last but not the least, special thanks to our audience. You're that aspect of our session that Conclave can't be successful without. I'd now like to invite Tanisha on stage to present Ms. Karishma Kevarmani and Ms. Namrata Soni with a small token of appreciation. Following this, I request the Conclave Core and the staff committee to join the stage for a group photograph with the speakers.
crown in a very loud room. A Rhodes Scholar with degrees from Columbia and Oxford is also a writer and translator whose sharp commentary spans major global publications. He has consistently used his platform to engage with questions that actually matter on governance, identity, and how public discourse functions today. This is exactly what makes him the right voice for our session titled The Voice of Reason. In a moment when opinion travels faster than thought and conviction is too often confused with volume, we wanted to have someone who has learned to think clearly inside the chaos and not above it. So, ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Mr. Anish Nawaz.
Hello, Xaviers. What an exciting time to be here for Malhar'. Thank you to all of you for having me here.
We are so glad to have you here, and I was just going to say the room is so vast because our favorite politician who's always on all of our feeds is now on the stage, and it's such an honor to have you here.
Naturally, you get it everywhere.
I'm Alicia, and I'm your moderator for today. So starting off, my very first
I said I would be a volunteer for the Congress Party. It was a very humbling experience. Many of you may not remember 2014, but it was a remarkable time because nearly 8 out of the 10 doors that we knocked on was slammed straight onto our face. And taught you resilience, etc. You did easily job it because it's very useful. And it got me really fascinated and interested in politics because it was the first time I saw how political campaign was done. Politics doesn't have an entry pathway like other professions do. There's no step 1, step 2, step 3. There's no qualification that you have to pursue. And I was hooked. But then I went off to the US to study. I got into Columbia University. I was in New York City. And while being in New York, I was faced with a very critical challenge. Because in my head, I knew that I was gay. But in my sort of logical expansion of what that meant, I knew that coming out of the closet would not be an option if I had to come back to India. I wanted to work in politics. And so I went to my campus therapist my first year of college and said, I need your help staying in the closet. And she looked at me and smiled and said, of course. And as these things go, it didn't really turn out that way, and I eventually came out of the closet and I kissed him and I liked it and there was no going back. But after there was no going back, I thought there's no coming back to India either. And so I thought I was going to settle down, become an academic in the US, which is why I studied comparative literature. And lo and behold, a few weeks before I graduated, I got a phone call from Deva who said, will you run my election? I said, 1 second, I'm very out in New York City. And he said, so? And this was before Section 377 was read out. I didn't really know if I could be out openly in India, what the consequence of that would be. But I said, hey, if somebody's giving me a chance, why not? And then over the course of the next 6 months, after coming back, I was told that Mumbai elections were still heating up. So vote travel across rural Maharashtra. And that was amazing because I grew up here, I don't know anything about rural Maharashtra. And so over the course of the next 6 months, I went everywhere from Mitchell Karanji to Patharli, sort of escaped the bodyguards and got swine flu in the process, and really learned what it meant to sort of run an election campaign at the state. Then worked on Millen's campaign for 2019. Again, and you might not remember that election either, but it did not end very well for any of us. And suddenly, 1 year later, after I come back to the US and dropped everything, I was faced with one terrifying reality that my degree in comparative literature was entirely unemployed, and I was Sushikshit Berozgar. And so I did what most people do. I applied to graduate school, got the roads, ended up at Oxford. And 2 years at Oxford later, I moved to Delhi. And met a lot of people, got more involved in politics. And another bump that I, because my ex-boss left the Congress party and joined the Shiv Sena Eknath Shinde. He said, will you come to this side with me? I said, I want to become a good politician. I want to sell my soul a little later on in the game, not so early. And said, I'll sort of stick with the opposition. And went and met Supriyata Sule, who is my boss and the coolest woman in politics in my opinion. And said, do you have work for me? And she said, yes, I do. And in some ways, that election we ended up winning 8 out of 10 Lok seats being contested. A few months later, I was sitting at breakfast with her in New Delhi, and just like we're sitting right now, I was telling her, this is going wrong, this is going wrong, this is going wrong. And she looked at me and said, fix it. And I said, I think I would point out the problems, I don't want to be the one fixing them. But I had the impetuousness of youth that I said, then give me a position. And she asked, what position? And I said, national spokesperson. For context, all the other national spokespersons are in their 50s and their 70s. And so she raised one eyebrow. And I said, okay. And the next 5 minutes, she called up to say that prepare the letter. We took a photo together, I took a photo with Mr. Bhawan, and suddenly I became national spokesperson at the age of 27, became the first openly gay person to be a national spokesperson for a party. So, roller coaster ride. But it ended up all small well that ends.
And I was about to say, lucky for us that you decided to take that up. And why the story is also very interesting is because I feel like you said, everybody knows how to be a lawyer, how to be a doctor. To become a politician, there's no real access point that is present. And so that is why I think it's so important that people know. But one thing that you mentioned, that when you came out to New York, you were convinced that now there was no going back to India, especially politics. It's always said, that it's the hardest to be the first, and then after that it becomes easier. So how is it that you decided that you were going to be the first?
No, I really did realize that I was the first until it happened. Right? And I think to some extent that's what a lot of us find ourselves in, a situation where we're not voluntarily the first, we're just the first because it's so unfortunate that nobody else had the privilege of coming out before. And even for me, if I didn't come from privilege, if I did not have a caste position that allowed me to come out, if I did not grow up in a city like Mumbai, if I didn't have the chance to go study abroad, maybe I would not have been able to come out either. And I think for me, the task remains to be able to ensure that more people can come out, that more people don't have to make the choice that I had to make and stay in the closet, that more people can think that it's perfectly okay to be out and to be in politics, or to be in public life, or to be in the administrative services. And I think that's something that's been so powerful. I think beyond everything else, I read all of my Instagram DMs religiously. I may not respond to all of them, but it gives me a lot of joy to read them. And the most incredible ones are from young queer kids who come from tier 2 or tier 3 cities who are saying that thank you so much because watching your video has changed our parents' minds. Or that suddenly our friends think that being queer is not such a bad thing anymore. And I think there's power in that, and it's slow progress. I'm not a big believer in representation as the final solution. But I think there's something magical about watching a country change in front of your eyes and to see that the fears that you had 10 years ago are not the fears that so many of you have today. They might be different fears, there might still be fears that exist. But the pace of progress is so remarkable that it fills me with an optimism and enthusiasm that I think is very hard to shake.
No, and I think just expanding on that, the one thing that I also noticed with you is that you have a very strong connection with the people, especially with the younger audience, but I think across diversity lines. In your opinion, what do you think has worked in your favor to sort of build that engagement and connection? Because like you yourself said, you're very active on Instagram, people DM you constantly. What do you think has worked in your favor to build that connection with the people?
You know, I'll tell you this, the most iconic piece of advice I got was from Sharad Pawar, when he said, if you want to be a politician, all you need to do is go out and talk to people. It doesn't matter which people, it doesn't matter where, it doesn't matter when, just keep talking to people. That's the only way of getting better at your job, because connecting with people is the basis of how you're going to be able to decide what your ideology is, where you stand in terms of the issues that you prioritize, who the people you care for are, and how you're going to work towards sort of solving their concerns. But I think I took that advice and tweaked it a little bit, that this was a very important thing in the middle of all the protests that happened at Jantar Mantar, where I said that actually today, connecting with people also means being chronically online. And so one of the ways of connecting with people is doom scrolling. That I have 3 Instagram accounts. I have a public account that obviously is quite political. I have a private account where I hit not interested of everything political. And I have a complete burner account that nobody knows the name of, that I just use to doom scroll. Because when you break out of the silos that the algorithm gives you, that's when you realize what somebody else is looking at. And there was a moment which was quite remarkable that I learned this, which was in Kashmir in September 2019. It was after the abrogation of Article 370. There was no internet connection and phone access in Kashmir for months, entirely illegally. And we were running the Dara Shikoh Fellowship. So I had 4 fellows and we said we're going to continue with this anyway. And so for 1 month, 4 of us spent time with each other without any internet access. And the only thing we could do to sort of fix our border was look at each other's Twitter feeds and all the tweets that had been sort of saved before. And it felt like having access to somebody else's mind. And I think that's something quite powerful. If you can see what somebody else is consuming, if you can break out the silo that you're not to consume, then you're going to be much better at your job, and it's going to be a far more useful way for you to engage with issues that matter. You know, the Cockroach Janata Party was born out of an online movement because our Chief Justice made some remarkable comments that he's since come to regret. But the success of the Cockroach Janata Party was its ability to be chronically online and to recognize before established political parties like ours, by the way, that need was an important issue. Right? Because young people, right after giving that exam and being told that it had been postponed, were DMing the Cockroach Janata Party Instagram account and our Instagram account, being like, this is a major issue you should talk about. Right? So your ability to be directly connected to people is made more possible today in the age of technology than ever before. And we have to take advantage of that. And we have to reach out to people directly. Because earlier, you had to get through some 4 PAs. All of you are Malhar organizers, so you probably know how difficult it is to reach out to any of your speakers and how many layers you have to get through. But now you get to cut through all of that. Right? I got my Malhar invitation as an Instagram DM, not as a formal email or anything like that. So that ability to be connected directly is very important. And perhaps, just perhaps, doom scrolling is the answer.
No, and I think what you said is very interesting because this is a very new way of now connecting to the audience, and also when you limits would reach. So when you are only consuming a certain type of content, that is the type of people that you reach. So I think it's very interesting how you have three separate accounts and how you engage with people like that. And I believe Instagram is just such a democratic platform because it has made access easy for everyone, but it's also a very sensitive platform. And you are out there, like you said, chronically online and you're giving out political opinions. Do you think you are faced with unreasonable hate and criticism? And if yes, how do you deal with it?
You know, speaking out in this country has always come at a price. On the 8th of August 1942, in this very city, the Quit India resolution was passed by Mahatma Gandhi. That very evening, the entire top leadership of the Congress party was arrested, detained, and not allowed to come for the Quit India movement. Right? It was Aruna Asaf Ali who went to Gwalior tank the next morning and on the 9th of August 1942 raised the Tiranga at Gwalior tank and became a woman who showed that if you silence everybody else, there will still be one person who has the courage to speak. After that, it was Usha Mehta, who was 22 years old at that time, by the way, who was a student at that time, who smuggled in radio equipment and started Congress radio when the government, the British Raj at that time, was stifling all news of arrest. They were the Godi media before Godi media. And they were sort of preventing access to any kind of information. And it was Usha Mehta who went from Chowpatty to Walkeshwar to Bhuleshwar and sort of got that radio running until 4 months later she was betrayed. And she had to pay a price. Right? She had to pay a price because she was sentenced to 4 years of rigorous imprisonment and Nirvana jail. And young people have had to continuously pay the price in this country. During the emergency, the daughter of Jawaharlal Nehru, who was his own fiercest critic, had the audacity to arrest young people in this very city. Thousands of them. You know, in the early 2000s, our government, and this is a political party I belong to, had the audacity to fire pellet guns on young students in Kashmir. And it is embarrassing and shameful that 20 years after that, the same government but led by a different party had the audacity to fire pellet guns on young students in New Delhi. And so there is a price to pay. There are young people in jail right now. Omar Khalid is in jail right now for raising his voice. He has not gotten a fair trial. You know, Father Stan Swami was in jail and denied a cigar. It was this college that stood up for him in those times. So speaking out has always come at us. But what this movement demands from us, as all movements have demanded from us in the past, is a kind of moral conviction and courage that says that fearlessness must be accompanied by an acknowledgement that there will be a price to pay, but we are willing to pay that price. And it's a price that we must be willing to pay against anybody in a position of power. I speak out against the government today because they are in government. I hope that all of you will speak out against our government if we come to power. Because we must hold power to power. We must ensure the principles that this country was built upon can be upheld regardless of which party, which political formation, which prime minister sits in that chair. And that is our duty as young people. It is to have that opinion, it is to still speak out. When He spoke out and put one hand to that man and said, guts you have to think that you can take these people away. She faced death threats, she faced death threats, but she continued speaking. When Abhijit Dikhe said, Chalo Jantar Mantar, as a Dalit man in this country, he had ink thrown on him. But what did he say? Blue is my color, Jaydeep. What did Bihari say? I would do it again if I could. What did Usha Mehta do? For 4 years she was in prison. She never gave up another name. She never let anybody else go to jail. She said, I will serve my sentence, but I will never betray my country. I will never betray it. And so the ability to pay that price, and to say that we are ready to pay that price, requires a moral conviction and courage that you have to build. I don't know if I have built it up enough even today. I am still scared before I say certain things. I still police myself. I hope to be braver. My friend Trisha is sitting here. I often get palpitations when she speaks because she's far braver than I can ever be. Right? And she's had to face the brunt for that bravery as a woman. I don't have to face the kind of sexualized violence that women in this country face, even though I'm a queer man. Right? I might be a queer man, but I am a man. I'm in those groups. Women are not in these groups. They're not allowed to have a voice. Their silence is much bigger. And so that courage requires us to recognize the privilege we come with and to also say that if I have the chance to speak, then I must make it easier for somebody else to speak, and I must stand up for that last person who is being harassed.
And I think you put it very succinctly because, like I said before, it's always hardest to be the first. So it's always hardest to be the first one who speaks out and talk about it. And yes, there is a price to pay. It might not be just the government, but just from everywhere else. You know, in a society when you're breaking the law, you will have to face some resistance, right?
But you know, I'm just very amazed because I am also technically Gen Z, but my colleagues are all in their 70s, so I feel like the generation above me. And I saw these protests and I was amazed because young people have no chill. And I was like, boss, there's a lackey coming after you. And you're saying, hit me harder, daddy. And I was like, how do you respond to this? There's a way in which humor, satire, fun, memes have become the tools of resistance.
And I think Instagram is a big part of playing that because that is a culture that's sort of the platform promotes, but then I think that is what was visible in the product as well.
You know, I'm embarrassed to say it was only very recently that I learned what Bastapura actually is. I thought it was some Japanese word that was some manga culture. And then somebody was like, no, this is Shuddh Desi slang created from Can I get a maya? But this is amazing, right? Because remember that humor has always been the only way of resisting those in positions of power who cannot understand or replicate your way. Because authoritarians are many things, but they can't be funny. They're very bad at being funny. And they've tried. I mean, you should see some of their deals. It's cringe max. But during the emergency, it was the Times of India that carried an article that said, Death of democracy, father of L.I. Bertie, in a way that was impossible to censor. Because how do you censor an obituary? Right? And so we have to keep finding more creative avenues. We could not get our voices shut down. We know that Meta has a rare distinction and ability to shut voices down when they are not compliant. If you talk about sexual assault, the content gets marked down as sensitive. If you talk about anything against the government, the videos get taken down. If you talk about issues pertaining to your own community, and people mass report them, they don't show up on feeds anymore. So we're also fighting back against the algorithm. So the challenge for our generation is to also find how to innovate. How do you sort of beat the algorithm to still succeed? How do you come up against the forces that are powerful and against you to be able to create change and make change?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. It's a very new, very creative form of engagement with the public in policy and politics, and I think I'm very excited to see where it goes. But another issue.
Can we have time for their questions also?
Yes, 100%.
I will take all questions. Can we go there now? Can we go to audience questions now? Because I think we run out of time. Unless you have one pressing question.
One last question.
Which other one last?
Yeah, because I really want to ask this. Yeah. So the monsoon session of the parliament closed yesterday, and there was just so many issues that were pending discussion. There was the students' protest, there the FCRE bill, we have an impending legal issue bill that the Senate is trying to pass again in the parliament. So the Hindu has reported that out of the 11 bills that were passed in the Lok Sabha in this session, only 2 of them were actually debated upon. So my question here is, the Parliament is one of the biggest stages that is set in politics for public deliberation, for discussion, for policy. Why is it that it's not being able to deliver on its core ideals? Because if you see, there is no real sense of public deliberation and discussion happening in the Parliament throughout the session.
Let me put my political hat aside for a second and say that as a young person in this country, I am ashamed at what is happening in Parliament. It is disgusting to see elected members of Parliament not being able to have a frank, honest conversation across the political aisle. It wasn't always this way. In a city like Mumbai, Yusuf Mehrali, who coined Quit India, could disagree with Inu Masaki, who was the founder of the Swatantra Party. Even earlier, you could have Atal Bihari Vajpayee disagree with the Congress Party and have a debate with the Congress Party. You could have Manmohan Singh and Sushma Swaraj disagree with each other but still have dialogue and discussion. So we have to be very concerned, regardless of which political party you believe in, about the state of parliamentary discourse in our country today and about our inability to talk across the political divide. But ताली एक हाथ से नहीं बजती. The government has also not shown an honesty of it. When the Home Minister says he will only answer Parliament on the last day of Parliament, when the students are beaten up on the 20th of July, then it's not an answer I am willing to accept as a young person. I am not willing to settle for breadcrumb. My Home Minister should have answered on the 20th of July why pellet guns were fired in the national capital. My Home Minister should have answered on the 20th of July why lathis reached somebody's neck and led to somebody being sent to the ICU because their carotid artery was burst. Regardless of what government is in power, this is police excess that is unacceptable. It's unacceptable in Jharkhand, it's unacceptable in Delhi, it's unacceptable in Punjab, it's unacceptable in Maharashtra. And those questions have to be asked and answers have to be given. And so we have to wonder, what do we do with this? Because what we converted politics to is a service.
I mean, that's what I was about to say. It just adds to the pattern of politics that Indian politics already has. And being politics to myself, I just feel like parliamentary debates are something you have to really.
But I'll tell you this, the problem is also with us. When we watch a news channel debate, we clap when people fight with each other. That's the kind of masala we want. We want people throwing insults at each other. We want people sort of taking pot shots at each other. That's what we reward. Those are the reels that go viral. That's what people think will get their attention. And so in an attention economy, we are also purchasers of attention and we have to be very careful about where we put our attention. Because when politics becomes a circus, all of us become monkeys. And so it's not serving us either. So we must demand better from our representatives and we must demand better from our political discourse and stuff. Because until we start doing that, it's not going to change. So we have to stop laughing when these theatrics are played out in front of us. We have to stop clapping when all of this sort of gotcha movement is put in. Because unless that happens, this will not change in Parliament, this will not change in the state legislature, this will not change in the BFC, this will not change in debates on college campuses. So this is a rock that goes beyond political party and political ideology and affiliation. It's a rock that cuts to the very heart of an India that has forgotten to disagree but still have a conversation.
Ending on that very, very strong note, thank you so much. This was truly a pleasure. I will now open the floor.
Infiltrating the protest, the police was not taking action. And so you could not live with the guilt of something happening on your watch and you being responsible for it. Right? And so you have to be very careful when leading the people's movement to ensure that the people who are at the forefront of that movement do not get harmed and do not get into more trouble than they've gotten into already. And finally, I think the argument that convinced me the most was that we operate too often when we operate in political formations or as young people who are hopeful What we have shown is that we can mobilize when the cause is just. It does not mean that everybody should sit on the dharna every day. No. But it means that if the government does not listen to peaceful means, then we must protest, which is our right. And this is what has come about after Jantar Mantar, right? Look at Gen Alpha. They're going to schools in Bihar and saying that they're sitting outside the school until the toilet is fixed. You're seeing young people sitting outside an ST bus stand in Islampur and Maharashtra saying that if you do not increase the frequency of the ST buses after the cluster school scheme has been introduced and our schools are no longer in our villages but 8, 10, 15 kilometers away, then we will not allow them to get away. Right? And people are listening. When the Bar Council of India's chairman has the audacity to say that everybody at Nalsa will have their degree sort of questioned and will not be admitted to the bar because they dare to question why the Chief Justice was invited to their campus, he is forced by public pressure to first modify that order and then withdraw the order entirely because even the Vice Chancellor of Nalsa has a spine that says, "Who are you? This is not your father's jacket that you can demand an inquiry into students at a university." Right? So the confidence that we have gotten to say that we can stand up for what is right and people will support us. We did not have to sit on a dharna. We had to call him out and say that what we did was wrong for him to withdraw. And that is the power of people's movement. That is the power that we now have in our hands. And that is the moment that we have to seize. We must no longer be afraid to stand up for what is right, but to do so peacefully, to do so constitutionally, and to do so with the ideals that Baba Saheb Ambedkar and Mahatma Gandhi gave to us so many decades ago. The ideals that Yashodhara Chavan gave to us in this decade so many decades ago. And so I think that calling off the movement was maybe a choice that could be questioned. But perhaps it is a choice that has been made so that other choices can be made in the future. Other questions? Must also have a gender balance in the questions.
Hello. Yeah. So, sir, so glad to have you here. Sir, as you saw in the protest that we as a youth are very much dissatisfied with the status quo. We feel underrepresented, whether it is in the parliament or whether it is in the values that we grew up with, as you mentioned about Gandhi and Baba Saheb. Do you think as a generation when the power does come to us, will be more politically nihilistic or will be much more politically active?
Very good question. I worry about this as somebody who's in electoral politics with an established political power. I think in many ways, the mandate of Jantar Mantar, the mandate of Shivaji Park, the mandate of protests at 127 sites across the country was not a mandate for the opposition. People have lost faith in us as much as they have lost faith in the government. And that must lead to introspection by all political parties across the political line. Right? We must worry that there has not been a way for young people's aspirations to be voiced in a democratic manner through the polling booth. That young people do not think that the alternative to the government right now is worth voting for, because otherwise the same young people who came out onto the streets over the last few months would have voted differently in the elections that just happened over the last few years. So it is a very worrying mandate for politicians across the aisle and for politics as a whole. My worry is, and this is an argument I have with the corporate Janata Party because they don't want to enter politics, and I keep saying, please enter politics. You must enter politics. All of you must enter politics. Because politics can't be a dirty. It is a terrible, terrible profession. It is slow, it is dirty, it is corrupt, it is difficult to work with it, but it is still important to work with. And if we lose faith in politics, if we lose faith in the democratic framework that we have, which is a bad framework, whereas Winston Churchill, who I would like to quote very often, but who I resemble right now with one broken foot as I hobble along, said very long ago, democracy is the worst form of government that we have, except for all of the others that have come before it. So for better or for worse, we're stuck with what we have. And so we must must engage with what we have. And so as young people, we must now engage at all levels of government. We must now start asking who are operators. We must start being involved in civic governance. We must start asking what the BMC department in our neighborhood is and what their responsibilities are. What is the responsibility of the education department, and are they going to be introducing measures at the local level that are as important as the need issue or reforms at the national level? And that will lead to a kind of political engagement that questions everybody. Not just with a political agenda, not just with a kind of sort of political identity that shies away from questioning some while questioning others. See, those of us in politics are hypocrites. So I will depend upon all of you to call those of us out, because we also need to be called out. Because if we don't get called out, we will get overconfident, we will get arrogant, we will get cocky, and we will repeat the mistakes of the previous government as well, should we get elected to power. So we must have civil society to be one of the fundamental pillars of democracy, but not engaging with politics thinking that politics should not be engaged with, but engaging with politics thinking that even though the pace of change in politics is slow, that slow change is still working.
I think we have time for one more. Hi, I'm Naisha from SYCC. First of all, I'd just like to say I have a lot of respect for you, what you do, how you stand up for everybody. So, not to sound overly negative in the question I want to ask, but in today's time, how the government is dealing with the issues, especially with young people, I'd say it's hard to not do same, right? Because let's say I come out with a question, I try to question the government, I try to call them out, but I'm labeled as anti-national, I'm responded with rape threats, death threats. It's hard to not stay apolitical in this time. So how can we not stay in this slow process, and how do we respond to the government being unresponsive to us?
That's a very important question. I want to answer that in three parts. Right? First, I want to acknowledge that what you are feeling is incredibly valid. It is incredibly frustrating to be labeled as anti-national, urban naxal, anarchist for simply raising your voice. Trust me, 9 p.m. prime time debates are not an easy thing to go to when these labels and these insults are hurled at you every day. But there is a way in which an insult hurled often enough becomes a badge of pride. It is almost as if now these labels have become medals that young people wear on their sleeves. Because if you are labeling me anti-national, I know that what you are afraid of is that I care about my country. And that is the reason why these labels will not stick. And they haven't stuck in the past either. And so I want us to remember, and I said this in my remarks on Usha Mehta and the emergency and what happened during our government as well, that this sense of hopelessness has existed before as well. Governments in the past have done what governments today are doing, and young people in the past have responded with courage and conviction against those governments as well. I narrate a very phenomenal anecdote told to me by Ramdas Thakkar, who used to be the editor, or still is the editor of Popular Prakashana, 100-year-old Marathi publishing house based here in Mumbai. He was very active in organizing against the emergency, and they used to meet on the second floor of a house in Dadar, whose terrace was connected with that of the building next door, because they used to be able to see whether the police was coming up the staircase, go up to the terrace, hop on to the next building and climb back down. Right? So resisting, protesting has never been easy. There has always been a threat of going to jail, of facing persecution, of facing state violence. But you have to innovate and have that conviction to carry on more than ever before. Right? And the final way I want to answer your question is that in some ways, we are in a peculiar political moment. The political movements that came before us had a message of hope. There was a way in which, even during the CA NRC protests, there was a sense of hope and optimism that charged the room that you were in. In many ways, the very fact that the Cockroach Janata Party is called the Cockroach Janata Party shows you that in some ways hope has been dashed for our generation. We no longer can have the aspirations that those before us had, and that's a very difficult place to be in. Because you're told that the India shining moment that was going to arrive is not arrived. The jobs that you were told to be created have not been created. The opportunities that you were told you would have access to in abundance are not available at all. And so there is a sense of despair. There is a sense of fatalism that is marking some of our protests. We own the label cockroach and say, "मैं भी cockroach." अगर बुलाओगे cockroach तो मैं भी कहूँगा मैं हूँ cockroach. I am lazy, I am unemployed, but also like a cockroach, I am indestructible. So the way in which we are responding today is a very different way. It's the same sort of way that you see these reels being created, where you look at a police officer and you make a meme instead of having a sort of message of hope, but you convert even that meme into a spirit of resistance. So what the vocabulary of finding a way out of this despair, out of this gloom will be, is yet to be seen. It's all of you who are creating this vocabulary. You are creating a new language of resistance, you are creating a new grammar of protest, you are creating the structures that will allow us to continue raising our voice for the next generation. But every generation gets this opportunity. Generations before us found this vocabulary, found their own way of protesting, found their own way of being shut down, found their own way of saying some things and not saying others so they would not get into trouble. So you should be careful of that as well. You have to acknowledge you can get into trouble for something. Sometimes strategic silence is important. You're a student. Your future is perhaps at risk by some things that you say. It may not be worth it to put that future at risk. What I could say when I was a student without any backing is very different from what I can say now because I have a political party backing me. And I know that if they send me to a jail, maybe I'll get a VIP cell. You know? So, in some ways, you have to do that slow, difficult work and find the courage and resilience, but also the support networks that you need. It's no point being a revolutionary and then getting shut down tomorrow. You must also remember that you must form your opinions by talking to people you disagree with. You must form your opinions by engaging with those who may think that those opinions make you anti-national. You must strengthen those opinions into that steel forge that will make them sharper, that will make them more evocative, that will make them resonate with more people. And so perhaps the only advice that I can offer you in these times is that in the dark times there will be singing, even when there is despair and gloom all around, you wear something colorful and you come to Malhar and you have a fabulous conversation and you leave more hopeful than ever.
Thank you so much for all your questions. We have to wrap up for today. That's all the time we have. I'd like to invite Shravani to the board. Thank you.
On behalf of the Malhar'26 Organizing Committee, as well as the Conclave Department, I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude to Mr. Anish Gawande for gracing our seats with his presence. Your compelling talk and thought-provoking ideas that you shared today give us all a fresh and meaningful perspective to reflect upon. And I'm sure your insights resonated deeply with our people behind the pyramid, reminding us that true growth lies in questioning existing narratives and shaping an all-inclusive future. I would also like to thank our principal, Dr. Karna, the entire Malhar staff committee, as well as the multitude of departments involved in making this conclave session a true reflection of invaluable insights and determination that only a voice of reason can offer. I'd also like to thank our sponsor, OPM. And last but not the least,
And one loud round of applause for our incredible moderator who carried on this conversation with such passion. Yes, thank you very much. And of course, the entire organizing team for having me.
The change that never comes with a headline attached. It happens quietly, long before anyone's watching. It is exactly what this year's theme asks us to look for. Pratibha, behind the becoming. Not the moment of arrival, but everything before it. The quiet beginnings, the decisions nobody claps for. We see clean beaches, we see revived rivers. What we don't see is the 5 a.m. alarm. The first volunteer who almost did not show up. The years before anyone was watching. Today, we meet the people behind that becoming. Good afternoon, everyone. In today's panel, Courage to Care, where purpose meets practice, they take us behind their becoming. The moments that may not have made headlines, but made them who they are. Please welcome the award-winning environmentalist and founder of Beach Peace India, one of the country's largest youth-led environmental movements. Since 2017, he has mobilized over 4.5 lakh volunteers and removed 8.5 million kilograms of waste from beaches, rivers, and public spaces all across India, earning him the UN Volunteers India Week Award and a spot on the Forbes India's Digital Stars 2024 list, Mr. Malhar'26. Joining him is Mr. Mukherjee, known as the water hero of India and founder of Mission Clean Mumbai. Through water conservation and urban afforestation, he has turned individual resolve into a citizen-led movement, reviving water bodies one initiative at a time. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Malhar' 26 and Mr. Mukherjee. Let me ask you all something. You're walking along the beach, you see a plastic bottle in the sand, you've seen it 100 times before. You keep walking, like you always do. But one day, you do.
Check.
That's it. That's it. That's where this whole thing starts. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Manasvi Jain, one of the organizers here moderating today's session. Our speakers came from completely different worlds, but somewhere along the way, they both noticed the problem and chose to do something about it. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Malhar' 26 and Mr. Mukherjee. Sir, I want to flip in before the work. Before either of you became known for what you do today, if we went back to the person you were before this became such an important part of your life, what was it that was first made you stop and actually care?
Check. You want me to be honest or you want me to say something? I have to say it.
Totally honest.
I was not desperate. So I thought of picking up a career which meant academics would be why I chose to. But coming back to the question, I see an accidental environment. So I lived in London in the beach. 2017 I came to Bali, Indonesia as the first international trip with my board, 8-9-10. Now if you look at Bali, they are polluted, but back then they were very pristine and beautiful. When I came back to Mumbai, I was just cooling at the beach during the Nation Serve, and the state in which I saw the beach triggered a question in my mind: why are the beaches in Mumbai so dirty, right? And maybe that happened because of my recent trip to Bali. I came back home, I basically ranting to my mother that nobody cares about the beaches, the system is broken, we have such a long coastline, still polluted, and it went on like difference. At the end of the conversation, the mom simply said, "We keep the beaches clean, just go and clean." As simple as that. So I called up a couple of my school friends and I told them, let's go and clean up, right? Initially I thought that I would see the beach once, which takes me forever, only to realize that every high tide there is more waves that comes to the beach. So it was supposed to be a one-time activity. We kept doing it as a weekend hobby for a year. Then we realized the problem is more great than what we can think of. And eventually then we thought of, I was pursuing CA and dropped out of CA and continued doing this.
Mr. Subhaji, give me 1 minute.
Namaskar, thank you so much for the opportunity to connect with youth. The real youth of the nation who are going to lead this nation to the next level. The Gen Zs. First, clap for yourself before I talk. I don't hear from the Gen Z. Clap for yourself. Thank you, love you all. I am a marketing person. I believe in segmenting, targeting, and positioning. Looking at the success of Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, which has a turnover of 5 lakh crore rupees, looking at the youth of the nation who are looking for employment, who are looking for a sustainable future, we all deserve quality of life, and where the quality of water is extremely important. Looking at the NITI Aayog reports, where by 2036, we need aggressive efforts, knowledge transfer, research on water and water related activities, and a turnover of 9 lakh crore rupees. I decided after all the education, if it is not benefiting you and me, then it's waste of time. So my entire focus in life is what is written here, Jal hai to kal hai. The focus is to focus on water, quality and quantity for all of us, and we definitely deserve good quality of water which is given to us by God, and we deserve it in the way it has been given. Where everything is commercialized, it is very important that we do not allow handful of people to control the water resources across the nation, and that's why I am working in creating self-employment, skill development, innovations with 9 patents today, focusing on water conservation techniques so that we have enough water for ourselves and we do not have to be answerable to anybody on earth. We can catch our own water and use it. Mera chhat, mera pani. Catch the rain when it falls and where it falls. Jai.
I totally agree with both of you, sir. I believe that the focus starts with the small steps that we take along the way. Stemming from your statement, Mr. Malhar, this story is such a beautiful example of that. You call yourself an accidental environmentalist, and your mother's "go clean it yourself" became the unlikely beginning of all of this. Looking back at the person who started that journey and the person you are today, what has this journey actually changed the most about you?
The fact that I can sit here and speak to all of you all is an achievement. Let me give you an example. When we initiated the Giga movement, for the first 1.5 years, I have rejected all the offers of making because I was not someone who would go and talk to introvert. Eventually, I realized that if I want to reach out to people, I'll have to talk to people, right? I remember the first instance in 2018 for an event. I talked up the entire for 20 minutes. I went on to the stage and I said everything that I could remember. I got off the stage and I saw it was only 4 minutes. That's the day I realized, and from that day to today, I think that's one thing I've realized. But when you start working in social space, the most important thing that it teaches you is being patient, right? You expect people to change, you expect city to change, systems to change, but it has its own course and it takes its own time. Handling situations and like this sir and I have work on now. So a lot of times you come across challenges which you don't expect. So how you tackle it on ground challenges is something we all learn. And the biggest thing is how you manage it. Like I believe if you want to be an entrepreneur or anything, the most difficult aspect is human resource management, right? Managing people. That's something I think we have learned over the years. So many people volunteer for the Freedom Prize, right? 6-year-olds, 16-year-olds, economic and social background. One thing to learn is how to handle people, how do you work with them.
Great point of view. Coming back to Mrs. Subhaji, I think the idea of what shapes the way we see our surroundings brings me to you. You grew up in Prayagraj, surrounded by trees and a very different relationship with nature. And then you are here in Mumbai, a city that can feel almost like the opposite of that. I am very much curious about the transition. Did Mumbai will it change the way you look at the environment earlier?
Definitely. To an extent, I really feel Malhar. First of all, welcome Malhar to Malhar. It's so beautiful to have Malhar in Malhar. Malhar is doing the most thankless work on earth. He is doing the most difficult task, getting youth in the mangroves, getting youth actually use their hands, getting wet in the dirty water of Mumbai. It is impossible. Where every parent says that samundar ke pani mein haath mat lagana. But he is the person, thanks to him, that people started following him. He created a movement where students, youths are able to, Gen Zs are able to express themselves that this is my land, the water is also mine, the beach is also mine, and we deserve good quality for our life experience. And that is a big achievement that he has done. Somewhere, I have a very different thought process. Where he is doing all the thankless work, most difficult job, I am trying to tell people that this is the most important thing that needs to be done as we live for our own life experience, where it cannot be free, it cannot be a social initiative, it cannot be a CSR, it cannot be a hobby. Kya hai? Your hobby is to clean the beaches. No, this is the most important thing of our life. We need right kind of science, we need technology, we need law in place, we need the right people to do it, and which can give us the results. Today, if you go to Juhu Beach, last 15 years, cleanup is happening, and every June, July, and August, it is the same story. Nothing is changing. We have to catch hold of those culprits and punish them. Once we can request. Second, people like Malhar, he is actually on ground. I mean, more than a decade he is working there. But somewhere I feel that, I don't know which I should be saying this. I feel as the senior generation, I have failed the youth. I am responsible, the people of my age is responsible for all the difficult situation that the Gen Z is going through. When my teacher said that okay, we have to save water, we need to take care of nature, for us it is only like 10 or 100 numbers that I am getting. I get a nice poster, a drawing competition or an essay. But today I realize how much we are suffering. We are paying for something which is God's gift to mankind. I don't know, is it a good platform to disclose those facts? There is a thing called mafia, there is a thing called water mafia, I'm not sure if you are aware of. We spent 24,000 crore rupees paying to the. Will I be killed? Will we kidnapped? Yes. We paid 24,000 rupees to the tanker water business in MMR region. There's a lady who advertises a mineral water drinking machine. Swachh Jal, isko pichiye, isko kharidiye. That company, I cannot name the company, A, B, C, those are the companies, and they have a turnover of 19,000 crore rupees. Only for Mumbai region I'm talking about. I don't know if you are aware of this. There is a company, they pack water in plastic bottles, something like this. I have never seen that before. It's a blue color or a green color cap. They have a business turnover of 9,000 crore rupees in Mumbai, across MMR region. They are all bottling rainwater and selling it to us. Thing which is God's gift to mankind has been so commercialized and we are paying money, which is my mistake. It is the failure of the senior generation that we are not able to give it back to the way we have received. I apologize for it. But that's what I look at. We have to work on reading the things again. We have to go back and see what mistakes we have done. We have to enable the new generation. We have to enable the Gen Zs who are actually demanding and who wants to have the willingness to make this world a better place for all of us. I feel that I have betrayed my next generation, but yes, somewhere we are able to work as a team, actually redo certain things which can be better for our next generation. And I'm very sorry that you have to do things because we did not do. Very sorry for that. But I think I got more emotional expressing myself. Sorry.
So from our conversation, conversation so far, I believe that people play a really important role in the sector. Both of you began with something deeply personal, but eventually other people chose to join you. What makes someone go from simply, agreeing with the cause to actually showing up for it? Malhar, you talked about the generation, the youth. But what makes the youth join you and even stay consistent to it?
I think to begin with, I have learned something that there is something called as motivation. It's a myth because you can be motivated for a day or two. Like for example, between 9 years you can do 300. There are times I don't feel like going for the 300. But I believe that consistency leads you to places where motivation can't be. Right? Now I have a question for people in the audience. Why do you all think we organize 300? How many people think it's to clean up a specific location which is very good? Then why are we doing it? The primary motive of a campaign is not to clean up any location, it's to sensitize people. See, we all know about plastic pollution, climate change, but are we really contributing in individual lives? We are not. But I know for a fact that individuals come there at the freedom track, they spend 2 hours picking up plastics. In that sun, you smell the trash there is something that changes. Like I said, I appreciated the thing of thinking it would be a one-time thing. And something changed within me and it's been 9 years. So I think that experiential learning, because you have kids as young as 6 years old, they're not very efficient in terms of information. But the values that they learn at that age is very important. I completely understand that it's not it's not us who created this solution. Probably the previous generation or the government is responsible for it. But we are sitting, we have the independence data, right? We talk about democracy. What is democracy? Does anybody know what is democracy? Casting your vote every 5 years? Is that all about it? Has anyone heard about rights that the Constitution gives us? Right to education, freedom of expression, right? Article 51A of the Indian Constitution talks about the fundamental rights. There are 11 of them. One of them is protecting the environment and the natural habitat of the earth. Now ask this question to yourself. How many of us are actually doing it? While we talk about the rights that the Constitution gives us, we completely ignore, discard the duties that it comes with. All we are trying to do, we personally believe that the country will not change unless the government and the citizens participate together. Let me give you an example. How many of you have noticed what was on the street? Most of you, right? Has anyone ever reported to your concerned authority that please spot the photos? Please come and fix it. Because if you do that, you'll have to come and fix it in the next 2 to 3 days. Now, firstly, the bottle shouldn't be there in the first place to begin with, but now it's there. But as citizens, you think that we will live. As citizens, what we need to do is reach out to the concerned authority and inform about the same. I think the country can only become better with governments being more efficient with their systems and also public participating in it. In 2018, Maharashtra banned single-use plastic, right? Now we keep blaming the system and the government that they are not implementing efficiently. Mumbai has a population of approximately 1.5 crore people. If you do a math, approximately 50,000 people cleaning up the city every day. Are they efficient? Are they sufficient? They are not. The government cannot have an individual running and every citizen picking up their trash. Somewhere there must be a responsibility within us. We need to be a little bit mindful about the choices that we make, about how we handle our waste. I think that's where we can have some kind of changes. And coming back to your question, how can citizens or the youngsters be a part of it? I think the most important thing has been aligning them with their ideology. Why are we doing this? What are the benefits of this? What are the challenges of it? What is something that we can achieve?
Mr. Rajiv, were using that. You mentioned human resource, you mentioned marketing. They have a role to play in this sector, and how can we take it further through? Because I am a management student myself, I study HR, I study marketing. How can we join with theoretical knowledge or practical knowledge here?
I think answering this, I should only talk about what Malhar has achieved for Mumbai's or the nation. Juhu Beach and other beaches of Mumbai, which is an iconic place. If a kid is born somewhere in any part of India, the first thing he wants to visit a beach is Juhu Beach. Most loved and known beach in India. But he is the person who realized that it is becoming so dirty that people are hating the beaches again. It is because of Malhar who took the lead in expressing that yes, we need the beach to be clean. And it is the youth, it is the NCC, it is the NSS, it is the college students, it is the Gen Z who came forward, okay, I want to be with you. And this Malhar will never talk about what is actually achieved, but do you know something? It is because of his years of effort. Today, municipal corporation is bound to spend 200 crore rupees every year just to keep the beaches clean for every citizen. He is not doing it for himself. He is not just doing it for the students here, not just the youth, but every small kid, a senior citizen, anybody coming to Mumbai, they go to the beaches. Life when they are seeing एक समुंदर लाइफ का पहली बार देखा. Just imagine, they come all the way कि मैं मुंबई जाऊँगा, मैं मुंबई जाऊँगी ट्रेन में बैठ के. For us it is like next door thing, but for them मैं मुंबई गया, मैं जुहू बीच गया, and it is because of him, it is because of this kind of leadership, because of the youth, we are able to create real value to the people. Lifelong वो बोल पाएगा मैंने समुंदर पहली बार देखा. That is his achievement. Today, more than 7,000 people are directly or indirectly employed in the MMR region to keep all the beaches clean. If you go there at 4 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, you will see how beaches are being kept. Look at the lights, look at the toilets, look at the safety, and now you don't have to go to Goa. You can go to Juhu Beach and enjoy those basic amusement and those banana rides and skiing boats. It is all because of Malhar and all of you that we are able to regain the love and respect for the beaches of Mumbai. A great clap to yourself, the youth, the Gen Z and Malhar.
I think what is very we should all that. But I believe we are all in this together. It's not me, it's us, all the politics. So what marketing I realized one thing that most of us never treated it as a social cause or just to work with always because of how people perceive. Just to give you an example, my community is called as beach trees. When we had named something, a lot of people suggested I should have named something like Malhar'26 Foundation, right? I thought that's not very easy for people. So we came up with a name which resonated. It has a fun to it and it's very relatable. Second thing, you always see friends. Why that is first thing is not a finance. Second thing is our logo is a name. It's a brand because right? Third thing what we leverage most importantly has been social media. I think social media has played a very important role for us in terms of reaching out to people. I'll give you an example. In 2024, we put out a video on Mother's Day. While everybody was putting out pictures with their mothers, we would do an agro video and the POV said something like, "You are a mama's boy," in a bracket mother boy. That video hit 157 million. But the best part was 6,000 people volunteered because of that. That's how important is. And the most difficult thing that we have struggled with being relevant, just we almost a decade I've been doing cleanups and I feel very old now. 10 years since I've passed on. Being relevant, like I'm also Gen Z, I'm 97 years old. But when I started to understand what not happening, because you saw pictures, then we had to adapt. So adapting, since you mentioned about marketing, you treat it like a corporate or a business that you have to make focus on how you reach out to people about marketing. Yeah, and like I said, the Gen Zs are very smart, very hardworking. The only thing you have to do is be relatable. That's what we're trying to do.
That is really thoughtful of you both. I think the audience here really resonates with everything that you said. But with that comes a whole different side of the work that people rarely see. We often see the meaningful side of purpose from the outside. We see the impact, but not necessarily the difficult or the ordinary parts of getting there. What's that one part of this life that would surprise them if they spent a week doing your work with you?
Sorry, I couldn't get it.
So, if someone from the audience joined you for a day, for a week, what's that one part of this life that would, surprise them will be? Or maybe the work that you do, something from your daily schedule, something that you see and you live with.
There are two aspects. What basically I do is we work on ground, we create content, we part of it, but we also work on a couple of government parties to build so that if you be present there, you realize it's very good. Most of the time, either you are discussing something, you're paper or submitting proposals, that's the moving side of the work. But I think the most difficult thing will be if you ever join to a macro thing, nothing it's going to be a life-changing experience. Let me part.
was this incident where he came and his forms we have water in the legs and chest. We spotted a snake once, okay? That's not the most difficult thing. It's fine. They're very, I think, loving. Again, we are very clean. They're also very calm. I jumped into the swamp once. There was an open syringe and sat on top. And that day, I was so scared. I just came out and just, what if it was a possibility that one syringe that just touched me something? Forget me. Because of the water. So, we on a daily basis are exposed to such kind of difficulties where we could come across some kind of disease, injuries, things like that. So I think that's something which I think is very helpful about.
So I want to bring this back to everyone present here. A lot of people care deeply about something, but the hardest part is often moving from someone should do it to I will do something. And if everyone here left the room and did just one thing differently tomorrow, what would you want that to be?
I'll tell you something from my experience. When I initiated the Freedom Prize first course in graduation, e-com and CA, I reached a point where I could either pick among them. So I dropped out of CA, I did my graduation at full 46%, and I thought of making a career out of it. Back then, Freedom Prize was not very popular. So my mother asked me a simple question: you're doing a great job, how do you make a living out of it? To be very honest, I had no answer, right? But I told her simply, have hope, let's figure out it. A couple of years later, someone suggested that I should be educated in environment. I told for educated but said not I talk about again. People really thought that I am stupid that I am doing something that I shouldn't do. I remember I was 18 years old, my parents got me a we broke up of course. A couple of years later, I was in Laura Post vaccine. Another absolutely mentioned to all the people who called me Kashmir, cheers the voice of Laura Post vaccine. Then the national created the award. All I'm trying to say here is that all of us who have it, right? If you believe in something, work towards your passion, take the risk, this is the time to do it. Do what you love because you will spend most of your time doing something that you love. And then work on converting your passion into a profession. I think if you do that, you'll be the best person doing it. If you're being a child, be the best child ever. If you're picking up vegetable, be the best vegetable ever. Whatever you're doing, just make sure you love what you're doing and be passionate and take risks. Do not do something just for the sake of motivation and making money. Money is very important in digital financial security. But as you have to spend the next 30, 40 years doing that, money will follow your passion. He has so much of very experience, I think, could add value to it.
Thank you, Malhar'. I have great respect for him because he has set a standard for a nation to look up to him. Coming to my opinion, coming to how I look at things, is as citizens we do not respect our health. As citizens, we just take things for granted. Whatever is given to us, we take it. I don't know if you're actually aware what kind of quality of water you're drinking. Do you really think the water which is given to us in a bottle is really worth drinking? Do you really think the machine installed at your home is really worth the quality of water you are drinking? Do you know 6 lakh infants? I hope all of you are 18 plus. I can state certain examples. 6 lakh plus infants are dying every year today because of bad quality of water, diarrhea, and many more things. The quality of water is extremely important. What is the mistake of that small child who is born, who is only 4 months, 3 months, 7 months, and the person is that kid is not able to survive because of the type of world that we have created? The moment the kid is moving out of mother's womb, the kid is not able to survive this planet. This is our mistake. We have a very important, extremely important goal to accomplish: the quality of water that we deserve, quantity of water that we deserve. And that's what I'm trying to work with every individual starting at your home. Because even at this moment, we have 15% water cut, the tanker business is on. We are suffering, everybody is put on a building which is like 100 floor, 30 floor, 80 floor. They go to any of this building, they have a water shortage. There is a disconnect. The youth has to ask the question. The Gen Z has to make people responsible for the town planning and whatever is happening around us. It is not the money that will do us. It is the town planning, which is the situation that has been created for us, making our next generation's life more difficult. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to express everyone that you are the person who will be benefiting the most, and you are the person who is going to suffer the most. Because there are two types of people on earth. I'm again saying this off the record. One, people whose past tense is very long, like me. I'm already nearing 50. My past tense is longer than the future tense. But there are people sitting here, your future tense is longer than the past tense. You are the person who is going to suffer the most. So you have to question. You have to rise for your own quality of life, own quality of water. And that's what I'm trying to do. I'm working on skill development, self-empowerment, so that you are able to hold yourself. You are able to demand and implement the quality that you deserve. And that's what I'm trying to do.
I think that's really the heart of this conversation today. I think we have all taken something meaningful away from this conversation. Neither of you started knowing where this journey would be. You simply noticed something, cared enough to act, and kept going. And maybe that's what courage to care is about. Before we close, Mr. Subhaji has a short video he'd like to share with us. So let's see the work we have been talking about come to life.
Yeah, I got a chance to be at Cannes Film Festival. I wanted to look at the video. I hope you will have it. And Malhar'26.
Principal Dr. Conclave, Malhar Staff Committee, as well as the multitude of departments involved in making this day of conclave session what it promised to deliver. I'd also like to thank our sponsor, OPM. OPM presents Malhar Conclave 2026. OPM is India's largest AI-driven digital lending infrastructure company, redefining the credit ecosystem through a sophisticated end-to-end technology platform. Last but not the least, I would like to extend a special token of appreciation toward our audience. Now, I would like to invite Ashma Ma'am and Satya Ma'am on stage to present Mr. Malhar Kalve and Mr. Subhash Mukherjee with a token of our affection and appreciation.
Clap for yourself.
As we conclude, Mr. Subhajit would like to present a token of appreciation to Mr. Malhar, Ashma Ma'am and Satya Ma'am as a gesture of gratitude. May I invite Mr. Subhajit to come forward for the presentation.
Mic, please.
Namaskar, today is 14th, a very, very important day. I got a chance to visit Singapore last year and I went to every shop, every office, every public place, they had their own national flag everywhere. I came back to India, I started questioning why do we not have a national flag in our home, in our offices, in our halls. So, today is a very important day. I take the privilege of gifting the Indian national flag Tiranga to Malhar to start with. Bharat Mata Ki! Bharat Mata Ki! Bharat Mata Ki! One day! One day! One day! This is for the students, this is for college, this is for the college principal's room, also for the students, on behalf of all of us. Please. Tiranga. Thank you, sir. The purpose is we also think that I should have a Tiranga at home. Please. One day, one day, one day. Perhaps I want to share something.
Can we have a round of applause for Malhar?